Here's what happened. It's 3 a.m. I'm at the summit of this mountain in Vermont, Stratton, Vermont. It is windy as hell, super cold. There's volunteers with me. We're underneath this tent, and you have one of those, oh man, the heat lamps. Yeah, those heat lamps there keep us warm. We're all like huddled in around it. We got snacks, and we're waiting for participants in this endurance event to hike up this mountain and meet us at the summit. And we're waiting for them, getting ready to cheer them on and pump them up of they've made it another lap, another summit. Because what they have to do now is gondola back down and repeat it again. I want to share with you 3 simple communication skills I learned in that moment, not realizing it at the time, but looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, those 3 are going to be really helpful to help prevent burnout for you. So let's get into it. This is Make Burnout Extinct podcast. I'm Robert David Weeks. I'm going to get to that story of that endurance event, the company that runs it. But before I do, I want to share the problem today. I want to get into it today with the problem that we all could be struggling with. And I know particularly my generation of millennials, we deal with this. Hands are raised right now. My hands raised for this one, as well as Gen Z. And I know across the board, all generations can experience it, but especially those two. And that is loneliness, struggle of connection and intimacy with others. We have connected digitally, and we think we have a lot of these friends with us, a lot of followers, but in reality, are we able to have that experience of truly sharing that intimacy and that connection with people in person? And what happens when we are able to do that is we're able to give ourselves a gift of connection, of belonging, that is super powerful to help us to prevent burnout in our life. So what I want to do today, gotta move this here. What I want to do today is define some terms for you. So we're on the same page. I will share how this connects to burnout for the loneliness, so that you can understand that. And then what I'm going to do is share with you that endurance event story, and within that 3 plays that you can try that will help you to create greater connection and intimacy, or create the connection and intimacy with others. So let's get into the definitions to kick this off. We're going to go to my buddy Merriam-Webster dictionary. You know what's up. Here we go. I'm going to start with the first definition of connecting. So connecting is to become joined. So when we think about that, you can think of like a bridge, an imaginary bridge of connecting you to another person. I believe we're all connected as human beings with each other and with with all of nature. We're all connected. We all are part of something bigger than ourselves. That's my belief. I think it's so powerful because it allows us to realize that we're just one small part in this whole world, and so the problems that we create for ourselves can really be shrinked in size for when we look at how big this world is. And then we can move forward in our lives and continue to do what we want to do and move towards that direction of the vision that we have for life. So it allows a relief to come off. So if you don't have that belief, that's one that can be really powerful just in itself to help you to lower your levels of stress, of anxiety, and overwhelm. Going from that definition, I want to talk about social. Okay, so we can think of society as a word that comes up with this, but I want to get into social, what that definition is. And it is a tending to form cooperative and interdependent relationships with others. This is where we start to think about other people, where from a definition stance. So cooperative and interdependence. Let me get into interdependence for you, but cooperative, it's working together is what I think about for that word. So let me define interdependence. So we have that. Interdependence is dependent upon one another, mutual dependence. So being able to lean on someone else, and then also someone else can lean on you. And as something that I believe we, as a community, as a society, we could do a lot better at is leaning on each other, feeling like we're realizing we're on the same team, because we are. We really are as human beings. We tend to forget that a lot of times, when especially we're in this heated, divisive fear, chaotic world that we live in, it can feel like we're always against each other at times. And I want to be a reminder for you of us changing that narrative and realizing we are on the same team. We're all human beings. We all are connected in some level and on some way. So that's interdependence. The last one I want to talk about for definition is intimacy. When I say that word, even as I said it, I'm like, oh, it's like it's softer. It's a softer word. It can be scary in some ways. I know for me, I had felt like it was scary in certain ways because you're opening up your personal and private nature to other people. So how it's defined is something of a personal or private nature. And so we think about that. If we are going to be intimate with another person, we are going to share that with another person. And we can have the fears of judgment that come up because of that, this fear and anxiety of, am I going to be accepted? Because we go back to, I've shared this in another conversation. It could be the one about rejection that I highly recommend to look at that, where I think it's experiencing rejection. Yeah, it's that's part of the title. Highly recommend listening to that one too. But when we can have that fear, but that fear is greater than us actually having the clarity to decide to open up with a person and the potential gift that can come from that. At times it can cause pain, and then we have to move forward from that. But then when we are able to be intimate with another person and they're able to be intimate with us, that creates powerful responses from the body. With our hormones, we are releasing the love chemicals. We feel that connection, and it allows us to relax, which when we go to the connection to burnout now and connect this back to burnout, when we are feeling lonely and we're struggling to connect and create that intimacy with other people, and we feel alone in this world, we are then not able to have opportunities to release the stress, the thoughts that are coming up, the narratives that we're creating, and the stresses in our being. We're not able to release that through the words that we're sharing with other people, and we don't feel then we have a support system that we can lean on. So what that then does is it allows a chronic stress and anxiety to build, to continue to stay chronic. And that leads us to then the chronic exhaustion, that first red flag, as well as the negativity in our work. If we're feeling alone in our work and the work is rough, then there's no way for us to release that with other people, to use that way of release, which is a powerful way to release out, of talking it out with other people and sharing what's going on. So then that builds upon itself, and then we're getting hit in the third red flag of terrible performance. So I want to share with you 3 plays that you can try to be able to create connection and intimacy with others. And they are simple. They are simple. I will say that. I'm gonna like hit they're simple, but the caveat here and the kicker is that it can be hard to stay consistent with this. And that is something where you're going to have to take on this responsibility of committing to trying this out for yourself. And, I suggest try it out for 7 days for any one of these plays. And from there, see how you feel and focus in on how you feel within the body after doing this, and especially in the moment when it happens. So to get back into it for the story, I was on this mountain at 3 a.m. in Stratton, Vermont. And what would happen is I ended up having the overnight shift on the summit of this mountain. So it was like around like midnight, might have been 11 p.m. until that next morning for like 8 hours. So I'm there. I have I think it was like 2 volunteers with me. And what I did was I was managing the aid station. So participants would come in, we got snacks for them, making sure to check in on them, see how they're feeling, check in with how they're feeling. And I remembered, at this point, it's like 3 a.m. This is where it feels like a ghost town. Like there's not a lot happening. It's dark. We're huddled around the heater to stay warm, but we're waiting. We're looking out in the distance, waiting for a headlamp, because each participant had to wear a headlamp to make sure we're waiting for them to come up the mountain up to the summit so we can cheer them on. Because what happens is participants at this event, they are hiking the equivalent of Mount Everest is the goal. So what that means is you hike up the mountain, you gondola back down, and then you repeat that process until you hit the equivalent of the same amount of feet of elevation as Mount Everest. It is a badass event. It's incredible for the community that comes together, and what and how you feel about the connection with others there. You're able to get to the rawness of the human nature, see people at their toughest time, like toughest moments, and then the most excited moments. It's a full range of different emotions that can come through. And what was interesting is, for backstory, how I got connected to this company and this event was through me outreach, like a cold outreach. It was just like I saw a video about it online, and it was from the one of the founders, Jesse Itzler. I was like, this sounds super cool. At the time, I was living with my parents. I had moved back in, and I was struggling to create connection because I had no friends in my area. So it's hard for me to create that connection with others. And that's where I was having the negative thoughts piling up and the stress piling up and anxiety piling up. So when I saw this event, I reached out, cold emailed, I volunteered for the first event, and then I just was like, I'm going to do all I can to show them that I'm here to support the community and the mission. And I, from that first event, I was able to then get contracted out to go into the aid manager position, and that's where we get to this point. And so it's a reminder to take the chances, to just put out the email, send the email. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know what will happen if you don't. Nothing's going to happen. So that's also can be really helpful as a reminder for you to just go out there and take action in what you feel like you want to do. So when going back to that 3 a.m. cold, windy night, we would see the headlamps come up, and what would happen is then the group of us would go out and start cheering. Like I had a cowbell, I was ringing it, cheering them on, being like, fuck yeah, like I mean, I don't think I ever said fuck. I may have said fuck yeah a few times. I was trying to think if I like was cursing it up a bunch then. I think I was still scared to like really just be able to express how I'm feeling. So I was just cheering them on though. I was like, let's go, come on, you got this, you can do it, you're almost there. And what would happen is like, you get to the moment now where they've done a few of these laps and a few of these summits, and they're just like done. You just feel it. It's like hunched over shoulders, like one step at a time, like these small little steps. And you just get this rush. I'm feeling it even now. You get this rush of being able to be there as a support for them. You then can see immediately their face change when they see you, because they light up. They're excited. They're just like, oh yes, thank you. Like they made it. They got to the summit, and it's that positive energy that is flowing towards them that they're able to take in because they've been through some shit of climbing up this mountain. And what this hits for me is the first play that I want to share with you. And that is celebrating the small efforts of others. You can do that in so many different ways. I know, and it's simple. It sounds super simple, but it could be as simple as someone opening up a door for another person, or grabbing something that fell, that someone dropped something, another person picks it up. If that's in the workplace, if that's in your everyday life outside of work, just acknowledging that and celebrating that, even saying thank you, like that was so cool what you did. Oh, that was epic, dude. Or like that was awesome and amazing what you just did. Just those small, it takes a few seconds, but what will happen for you is you will feel connection that occurs. You can feel a change in how this person, you literally, you can see it where they light up. It's a change. They get acknowledged. And this can help start for you that process of creating connection. And then that can lead into intimacy later on as that builds over time. But all three of these plays are starting points for you to put in the reps, to put it in over time. It's not just like all of a sudden it's going to happen overnight. You got to put in the work with this. But this is a great small action that you can take to build upon this. I always come back to starting small is really important. So when you can celebrate these, it gets you out of your problems and challenges that you're facing, and you're able to get present with the other person. And when you're doing this over time, I mean, you have hundreds of opportunities to do this throughout the day. That's just the most beautiful thing about this. You have multiple reps, chances for putting in the reps here, which creates the no excuses. Like, you can do this. And what you'll notice over time is you will feel a greater sense of purpose. You will feel that greater sense of connection with others, and it will create a bodily response for you of like sensations. It could be chills, it could be tingles. I know for me, it can be sometimes like back of neck chills that can happen of like, oh, like you had that, the pumping of the love chemicals coming in, serotonin like pumped through with you doing that act of celebrating their small effort. So that's play number one. Then coming back to when these people would climb the mountain and get to the point where we're now interacting, I've celebrated their effort, said they're here. Now it's the next question that I ask is, how are you feeling? A simple question that can open up a whole many doorways of possibilities of where that can lead. I think back to in the moment, some people are just like, oh man, I'm feeling all right. Or I'm feeling great because I just made it to the summit. And then there are other ones where it's like, I'm not feeling great. I'm feeling shitty. And it's in those moments where you have to take them aside and have a conversation with them, figure out what they need, what they're wanting, what they can support for snacks, for drinks, for heat, blankets. What do they need? And when we can ask that question in the workplace, ask this question in our personal lives, especially with friends, when we can ask our friends how they're feeling, especially thinking back to these participants where they're in tough times, if we can do that for our friends in tough times, that's where a depth of connection can happen and intimacy can happen that you may have never expected before. Because you are asking them at one of the toughest moments in their life, toughest times in their life. And when we can be there, those people, your friends, will never forget that. To be there for the tough times is a beautiful gift you can give to others. And then from there, what it creates is, again, that connection and intimacy for you. And it starts small with just a question of, how are you feeling? Simple as that. And again, you can have multiple times to do this. And from there, what could even happen is then your friend could ask, how are you feeling? And I know that we're at this point, I think back to the stat that I shared with you. Let me get to it here so I have it. But there's this stat from number of close friends that Americans have. From the American Survey Center in 1990 from 1990 to 2021, there has been a 300% increase in the amount of Americans that say they do not have a close friend. So if that is you, if you're someone that you feel like you don't have a close friend right now, you can ask how you're feeling to just a connection, someone that you may not yet have a close friendship with. It could be even a stranger. You have so many different people you could ask that question to that allows you to start to build connection and intimacy. And again, you can do that throughout your day. So that's play number 2. I want to get into the final play I want to share with you. And this was a reminder, is once that person came up and I was able to get what they needed, and then they were able to go back down the gondola and start back at the beginning. What I then did for myself was I had to check in with myself. Okay, so how am I feeling now? How to check in. And what I like to remind you is it's in these moments where you can give yourself a somatic activity, which is a body-based activity to reconnect with yourself and to be present. Because there can be a lot of energy that you then give out, but this is a moment to reconnect with yourself. And that can be a moment of just doing a body scan is what I like. Maybe feeling your shoulders. You can feel, okay, is my shoulders tense? So you can focus in on your shoulders and just feel like your shoulders make sure they're dropping. You could be just being able to massage your hands is another way to connect. Maybe it's just walking around a little bit. If that's getting up, walking for me, walking, from the heater to outside to back, just having this moment to focusing on my breathing, deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. These are all ways of and examples of somatic activities. But when you can give yourself the gift of a somatic activity, especially taking this into the workplace, when you can do this after, let's say, an intense charge of energy, this could be it could be after a big work task that you do, or a big conversation with your boss or with clients or with coworkers. When you can then do that, what that happens is it allows you to recharge, and you're communicating with yourself of acknowledging this is a moment where I need to have a moment of a break, and the somatic activity is a great way to create a break. Thinking back to professional athletes, ice hockey players, football players, you have football players that are, if you're on offense, you're taking a break when defense is on the field. For ice hockey, I mean, every few minutes you are taking a break. You're sitting on the bench to take a quick break. So you as a high performer, someone that's going out there making a big impact, you can take a break. You can have those moments to take a break. It's a rest period. It is a moment for you to reconnect with yourself, so that then you can show up for others and continue to focus on those other two plays of celebrating the small effort and asking how others are feeling. So this is how we communicate with ourselves, which is also really important in preventing burnout. And when I did that, I was then able to get recharged and ready for the next person coming up by looking out for that headlamp. And then that process continues, and that process continues. And when we bring it into real life, outside of that, it's also a reminder that you got to continue to put in the reps each and every day. Some days you may need to pause, and then other days it's our reminder to put in the reps. It's not just going to happen overnight, and it's not just going to be a one and done where we don't have to refocus on this. It is something we focus throughout our entire life. And so to recap for you for the 3 plays, so you have that. First one is celebrate the small efforts of others. Super simple. Many times in a day to do that. Second play is to ask how others are feeling. Friends, connections, strangers, anyone that you feel comfortable asking that question to. And even if you get into the challenge zone, go for it. If it's like, okay, this feels like a little edgy, going back to what I shared with the story of walking around the lake, having feeling feeling really nervous to say hi to people, as simple activity as that. So I get you if you're there, but let's push it, the challenge zone, and just ask how others are feeling. And it's going to be awkward. It's going to be a little weird, maybe feeling, but you do then get to celebrate your effort of actually doing that. And then the other play is to give yourself a somatic activity. Give yourself that time to communicate with you. And I'll leave you with this quote that you can focus in on for the next few days. It's by John Butcher, and it is, there's no one right way, but there is a right way for you. And this is your opportunity to take some of these plays, try it out for the next 7 days, and figure out if this is going to play a play that you're going to add into your burnout proof playbook to make burnout extinct in your life. If you like this episode, please don't forget to rate the podcast to help get this message out of Make Burnout Extinct. And you can share what resonates with you from this episode by connecting with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I don't take it for granted. Excited to reconnect again soon. Let's go. Come on.